So we're going to jump into the 1966 playoffs at this point, and the Toronto Maple Leafs had improved on their placement in the standings as they were now in third place, not fourth place. How the playoffs work, though, was that actually better? Because now you have to play the top seeded team overall. And guess what? That is the Montreal Canadiens. So the fourth year in a row. I said it before, I'll say again. This is where rivalries start. They're going to play the Montreal Canadiens in the semifinals. The Leafs took the uh, first two matches or matchups, and Montreal beat them last year and then went on to win the Stanley Cup. So we're going to see how the Leafs do in this season. I'm going to say it, said it before, I'm going to say it again. Looking at the lineup, we also got no Carl Brewer on your team on defense. Um, but anyways, with Montreal and Toronto, I'm thinking no wonder my mother had such strong emotions about Montreal that she lovingly passed on to me. So here we go. So, yeah, Montreal, taking a deeper look at their team, their offense, um, was perhaps even deeper this year than previous years. Bobby Rousseau led the team with 30 goals, but after Bobby, they had five other guys who scored 20 goals. So Jean Beliveau had 29, Gil Tremblay had 27. Both Henri Richard and Ralph Backstrom, they both had 22. And former Leaf, and he's on my Leaf Legends list, Dick Duff, he had 21, was playing in Montreal. John Ferguson, got to watch out for him. He was still patrolling the ice for Montreal as he had 153 PIMs this year for that squad. And in net for Montreal, you both had Gump Worsley and Charlie Hodge. They were both there, and they would be great options for them to help keep the puck out of the net. So in the series against Toronto, game one started at the Montreal Forum. Jean Beliveau scored the game-winning goal with less than 3 minutes left in the game and broke Toronto's back a bit there, and Montreal took the opener by a 4-3 score. In game two, this game was scoreless through two periods. Then Claude Provost scored a power play goal, and Worsley made 25 saves for the shutout, and Montreal won 2-1. Toronto needed to try and stop the bleeding when they got back to Toronto. See what they can do here. Montreal's offense, though, it started clicking in Toronto. In game three, uh, Terry Harper scored the game winner about halfway through the game, and Worsley made 28 saves, and Montreal took game three by a 5-2 score. Toronto's backs were slammed right up against the wall here as they were down 3-0 in the series, and they had to now win 4 games in a row to advance to the finals. An extremely tall task against an excellent Montreal Canadiens team. In game four, uh, Gil Tremblay scored two power play goals, including the game winner. Worsley made 30 saves, and Montreal took game four by a 4-1 score. So Toronto had been swept out of the playoffs in the 1966 playoffs. An extremely good team to do it against, but I'm expecting the feelings weren't also bright and rosy in Toronto about their team. They had won 3 cups in a row, lost in the semis last year, and now are getting swept out in the semis this year. It's definitely got a downward trajectory or a look. Um, this team does so. I'm expecting things weren't so great, especially in the newspapers, probably in Toronto either. For the 1966 playoffs for the Leafs, it was Eddie Shack who led the team in goals with two, points with three, and believe it or not, penalty minutes. He had 33 of those. Shack and Frank Mahovlich each had a power play goal, I'm sorry, each apiece. Both Johnny Bauer and Terry Sawchuk, they both played 2 games. Sawchuk's save percentage was quite good. It was an improvement. I mean, it was only 2 games, but it was an improvement over the regular season. He had a 917 save percentage, but Bauer's was 893, and he had a 4.03 goals against average. So, um, Bauer played in Toronto, Sawchuk played in Montreal. So, uh, not so good there. So Montreal was off to the Stanley Cup Finals for a second year in a row. In the other series, it was the Chicago Blackhawks and the Detroit Red Wings dueling it out again in the semifinals, just like Toronto and Montreal every year. It's always Chicago and Detroit on the other side. In Game 6 at the Olympia in Detroit, Dean Prentice had a pair of goals, including the game winner and an assist, and Detroit skated off with a 3-2 win and took the series by 4-2. So, and as well, Roger Crozier had 26 saves in that game. So it was the Montreal Canadiens and the Detroit Red Wings this year in the final in 1966. Um, Now getting into that series, the clubs were tied at 2 games apiece when it shifted back to Montreal. Yvonne Cornway, I haven't talked about him yet. He scored the game-winning power play goal late in the first period as the Habs took Game 5 by a hefty 5-1 score. Their offense is clicking. And Worsley kept performing in high-level situations because he had 20 saves for the win. He only had 21 shots, but that's one thing I remember about Montreal. You didn't get too many shots against them. In Game 6, it was back at the Olympia. This puppy went to overtime, and it was Henri Richard who popped in the game winner with over 2 minutes into the extra frame. Having a tough time speaking today. He also had an assist. Worsley had 28 saves for the win, so Montreal took the game 3-2 in the series Stanley Cup final 4-2. Montreal had just won their second Stanley Cup in a row. Uh, Good job there. And I believe this was Toblake's 10th Stanley Cup as their coach. For the Habs, Jean Beliveau led the squad with 5 goals. He performed. He seemed to perform in the playoffs. Um, Defenseman J.C. Tremblay had 11 points on the point. Gilles Tremblay had 3 power play goals. Defenseman Jim Roberts had a shorty, and back to Gilles Tremblay, he had 2 game winners as well, which led the playoffs. And John Ferguson led the Habs and the playoffs um, with his 44 penalty minutes for Montreal. In net, Gump Worsley once again in the playoffs was sparkling. He went 8-2, had a great 931 save percentage, a lovely 1.99 goals against average, and he had a shutout as well. By my glance, I would think, hey, maybe Gump should get the Conn Smythe. Those are terrific numbers, but no, it went to the Detroit Red Wings goalie, Roger Crozier. He went 6-5. His numbers still were very good. He had a 914 save percentage and a 2.34 goals against average, and he had a shutout as well. I certainly didn't see any of these games here, so I'm not sure. I imagine Crozier kept them in games, or maybe won games for them that they maybe shouldn't have won. Um, the Red Wings still had a great team, great players like Gordie Howe, Normie Ullman, um, but did not see any of the games, so I do not know. But that's excellent for Crozier to win this award. This is just the second time it had been handed out. But unfortunately for him, he was on the losing side and didn't win the Stanley Cup. So, anyways, that is the 1966 playoffs. Montreal wins their second in a row. The next video I will do, I really enjoy doing these. It's going to be the 1966 NHL draft. That'll be the next one coming up. So anyways, yeah, if you like this video, go ahead and hit like. Go ahead and subscribe as well. I'm going to have more videos on here about, really, it's about the Toronto Maple Leafs and their journey since 1967 as to why haven't they won a cup in that time period there. We are still before that time, but we'll be there soon, and we'll be able to see what went on at that point. And if you want to comment on anything, maybe if you saw any of these playoffs, go ahead and comment. But yeah, until next time, go Leafs go.